Hello, beer tubers, and welcome to another beer review with me, Peter, the master of hoppets, doing a very belated Christmas beer review. But in January, I went to my local bottle shop, and there was a clearance aisle of Christmas beers, and I saw one. I was like, "Oh, I really want to try that," because this kind of beer style with these kind of spices is something I really like. So this is from the Brewery, and this is Catch Me If You Can, a bourbon barrel aged gingerbread inspired Imperial Stout. So I could save this for Christmas next year. And I've got two other Christmas beers actually just from Bottle Logic that I got in January as well through Beer Dome. But I want to drink them before it starts to get spring-like. But when I'm still in the mood, well, I think I'd always be in the mood for festive beers. I don't know. I have a little bit of a thing with like festive spice. And I think it's because I get it rarely. So that's why I love it. Like I love, pumpkin pies and apple pies and gingerbread and all these like flavors that you associate with autumn, fall, and Christmas. It's not something I have often. I just love the flavors. So whenever I have them, I was like, oh, it's so awesome and autumnal or festive. So I love them. I love them in beers. I love them in. I'm a basic white girl, basically. So I love pumpkin spice. I love that. Like when it's done right. I've been disappointed a couple of times with pumpkin spice beers, but I've also had some nice ones. But I think where the spice things work sometimes very well is in big stouts. And I've talked about that before. I'd love more big stouts with falls or winter spices, where you do like these Christmas beers that are big barrel aged, modernized imperial stouts, but with these Christmas adjuncts. Or yeah, that's what it is. Spices, adjuncts, whatever, vanilla, these kind of things, cinnamon, all that. So there's a few breweries that do these. Like one of the most famous is the what's it called, Christmas Morning or something like that by Hardywood. And I've reviewed the regular version of that beer, which is great. But they do have a few variations and whatnot. But I thought I'd get this out of the way because it's still the season for cold weather. It's still winter. It's February. Even though it's not that cold at the moment in Denmark. But I want to get it out of the way. Also because I found out after buying this is a 21 vintage. So this is a 3-year-old can. And that's a long time. Like these beers can last, but it's with adjuncts. You want the adjuncts to shine right. So it's made with molasses, ginger, graham cracker, and gingerbread kind of spices. And it says here all the spices: cinnamon, allspice, clove, and nutmeg. So how they did this is they made a big imperial stout, and then in the boil, they added molasses, and then and then they aged it in bourbon barrels. And then afterwards, they added the spices. And I really like that idea of doing it, so you get the spices to be vibrant. Because anything you put in a barrel that needs to sit for a long time, what was in there before in terms of adjunct additions will fade. So let's see how it is. So it's been a long time since I've had a stout from the brewery, and this one looked quite rich pouring out, which was nice. Not like the thickest of thick, but rich enough. So pours, oh, look at that. I'm just going to brag about the Bad Seed glass. I love the look of this on a black background, that logo. I'm head brewer. I know it's not fair to talk too much about that. I've already done one blind tasting video, which I did not know would happen. But it was fun. But yeah, so it looks really great. It's really rich. It's black, tan head. I could smell the spices still when I pop this. So let's check out the aroma. Oh yes. Oh yes. It basically smells like you took an imperial stout, you added some bourbon, and you dumped in a gingerbread cookie. And I love it. It smells like a really rich base beer too. Like rich, decadent, kind of chocolatey, roasted malt coffee profile. Baker's chocolate. Caramel rich too. Toffee nuances. Very modern and very rich to the decadent, kind of desserty side without being pastry sweet. Definitely also because it has like a roasted maltiness. It's not just like pure caramel and chocolate. And then those really nice festive spices. I'm definitely picking up on cinnamon. That's cinnamon and ginger. I definitely pick on cinnamon and ginger. Those are like the most forward notes. I think clove is actually definitely there as well. And also allspice. They smell like that blend of spices. Like a lot of them, like when you smell them individually, you can definitely smell that they're different. But they have that similar feel to them. And I think maybe just because we're used to them being used in all these festive things. So we grew up in together. It's like, oh yeah, those are the kind of Christmassy spices. Like I remember making some of the first curries from scratch, from just Indian curries, and I remember serving it to family and stuff. Like, oh, this is a little bit Christmassy, isn't it? Also, pho, the soup, because there's like star anise and stuff in it, cinnamon. And like, this is a bit Christmassy. But that's just because we're taught that those flavors are for Christmas here. There's vanilla to it as well from the barrel. There's definitely some fudginess and some bourbon barrels still sticking around. And it's like fudgy bourbon, vanilla-y bourbon. Definitely a lot of vanilla, which I think is totally from the barrel because there was no mention of any vanilla in here. And the molasses definitely there too. There's this like rich, decadent, almost licoricey note to it. It smells really good. Let's try it. Cheers. That is awesome. Wow. That's the first time I've said that about a brewery beer in a long time. Also because I haven't really drunk a lot of the brewery. Okay, the brewery. I've got another brewery beer in the cellar. Maybe it's a brewery that's, getting back on the radar for people. I don't know. It's one of the OGs of the Californian craft beer scene. They have so many great beers. This is really great. Like, this is a very rich, full-bodied beer without it being too thick, which is also something that happens a lot these days. But super rich and balanced festive spice. It's still there, but I'm thinking when this was fresh, it must have been like a massive smack in the face. Very mouth-coating and full, sticky. Loads of caramel and fudge to it, both from barrel, but also from the base beer. Loads of charry wood. And also the base beer has like charry, roasty maltiness, slightly old school, but with a lot of new school flair, with loads of caramel and loads of toffee and like chocolate and like dark chocolate and these kind of flavors. Also a little bit of old school kind of tobacco-y notes and whatnot. Like it's definitely more of like an old school, modern process stout recipe, but still somewhat old school. When I think new school stouts, I think of these like pastry beers that are just sweet, like really sweet and caramelly and chocolatey. I've never been the most massive fan of it because you lose a lot of depth. Like this has depth from the base recipe and the barrels and then also the spices, and that's how you want it. Like to me, like any kind of pastry beer, there needs to be depth from everything. And also when you think of like more modern pastry beers, they're so full on the adjunct that like you really need these crazy intense big beers to blast through. And this seems crazy intense. It must have been a very big monster when this was fresh. But this is great. Like this is not just all sweet, kind of syrupy, chocolatey goo. It's like a very layered Imperial Stout drinking experience. This is really fucking great. This might actually be one of the best festive spiced Imperial Stouts I've ever had. This is really nice. And I had no expectations to this. I thought I'd like it, then I saw the date, and but this is awesome. I think I remember being a little bit disappointed still being good, but a little bit disappointed in the Imperial Stout from Bottle Logic we did in the Christmas calendar. Not my gumdrop buttons, which is similar to this in terms of making a gingerbread stout. It was just not as rich and layered and decadent. Like this is decadent also, but the spices make it really drinkable because they dry it out a bit. It doesn't feel massively sweet. And that beer lacked a little bit of layering and decadence, I think, in terms of being this big rich stout. But this is fucking dope. Like if you guys love the Hardywood stuff, you need to try and find some of this. I'm not sure if you can find, like if they've done it in fresher versions, but I'm sure this is still around, especially in Europe. There must be more places that still has this. This is just drinking marvelous. 10.3%, and it's so damn drinkable. I think this is world-class festive kind of Christmas beer. I'm going to go 95. This is just delicious. Love that decadent layered chocolate flavor. It's like dark chocolate. There's like both like the really intense like 80%. There's also like something that feels like chocolatey, but it's maybe more like a baker's chocolate or something like that. There's layering and effects there. There's charry wood. There's hints of tobacco too. Like there's just so much going on. Like this is dope. maybe even 96. Like, I'm really loving this. If you love anything fall spiced or Christmas spiced, and you love big stouts and barrels, you'll love this. And I love how the bourbon character complements it so much. It's like the caramel fudgy bourbon with a nice, undercurrent of vanilla. It's not like the biggest barrel expression, but I think it's also because of the age, but it's there, which is nice. And then no booze at all. Great stuff. Yeah, 95, 96 for this. This is fucking dope, world-class Christmas beer. So if you guys had a chance to try the Brewery, catch me if you can. Let me know what you thought of it, especially the 21 vintage here. It's holding up rather nicely, impressively enough. Fucking dope beer. So yeah, if you had it, let me know. As always, remember to comment, subscribe, check out the Facebook fan page, Twitter, and Instagram. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Ring the bell for future notifications about videos. And I'm going to say cheers in delicious barrel-aged stout. And see you guys in the beer review.